I killed my crew. More news on that later. Setting off today for Isla Culatra near Faro. The weather is pretty good. It looks like about force, 3-2 out of the northwest, which should be good as we cruise along down kind of southwest toward Faro. The idea is to stop there tonight, anchor off the island there, and then tomorrow morning set off toward Albufeira further west, and then the next day on toward Lagos. We've just left the harbor at Ayamonte, went over the bar. There was 5 meters over the bar, so plenty of water today, which is nice. As you can see, the sun's just coming up, and really light winds, but that's okay. We'll get the Jenny up and the main up full. Some winds are supposed to kick up later in the day, so we'll be ready to furl the Jenny and put a reef in the main.
The problem we're having trying to go west from Ayamonte is that the prevailing winds here go from west to east. So we'll be probably close-hauled for a major portion of the journey, which isn't so bad as long as the waves aren't bad. There's an old saying amongst sailors that gentlemen don't sail upwind. Sailing upwind is also called beating. Why? Well, I like to think it's because you take a beating doing it. Cue the groans from Jess and Charlie. But there isn't much wind as we set out today.
Look at that, sails up, first time this year, fantastic. Well, I've had them up, putting them on and going up the river a little bit, but that's pretty much the real deal. Absolute cracking sails so far. Seas are a little bit, got about 1.5 meters swell coming in with a little bit of cross chop, but it's not bad. We just tacked back toward Faro and the coast in order to avoid that little squall that's passing through. If we have the opportunity, sorry about that. If we have the opportunity, why kill ourselves to sail through a squall, right? So we've got full sail up, full Jenny out. We're doing about 5 knots. We're going to tack back toward Faro and Isla Culatra in about 10 minutes. Got a little bit of a rainbow going there. So a tough sail yesterday. We did about 23 nautical miles, and the waves were really kicking up, weather was kicking up, and the winds were turning adverse. We would have had to beat into them for about 60 miles, so decided to, discretion was the better part of valor, turned around, came back to Ayamonte rather than going to Lagos, so we're going to do a bit of a road trip. So now we're going to get into our rental car and go to Lisbon. Well, we've arrived in Lisbon and we're at an Airbnb. It's right down in the center, well, up near the castle. in the center of Lisbon. Really nice. I'm looking out the window over here. The castle's just up there. You can't quite see it, but very nice. Beautiful views over that way. And the weather this morning looks pretty good, so we're going to go out and go to an elevator. That's what they call it, but it's kind of, it looks like just the top of the Eiffel Tower, and it sticks up just slightly above some of the buildings around. Then we're going to go up to the castle, and then we're going to try some Lime scooters, I think, if I can talk Karen into it. I've been looking forward to trying out the Lime scooters for a while. This place has an amazing history. There are Iron Age settlements that were found underneath here. Then Phoenician pottery, Roman ruins. Of course, the Romans had to come in. And the Moors. After Moors, the Christians came through. And then, of course, modern history. So, an amazing place. If you look out there, that's a river. So, what an incredible deep water port for the Phoenicians, for the Romans. You could come in here and have entire civilizations grow up on the banks of this river.
The site of what would become the Castle of St. George was inhabited by Iron Age peoples, followed by, of course, the Phoenicians, the Carthaginians, Romans, Moors, and finally the Portuguese in the 12th century. There is evidence of settlements from the 7th and 8th centuries BC, and there have been defensive fortifications here since at least 48 BC, and yep, it was the Romans. The castle was built by the Moors in the 10th century, along with what is now called the Moorish Quarter, on top of older fortifications. It was taken from the Moors in 1147 during the Siege of Lisbon, and from the 12th century until the 17th centuries, it was a royal residence. It was in the 17th century that the castle was finally transitioned to a military barracks and no longer used as a royal residence. The earthquake of 1755 severely damaged the buildings and the site, and it fell into general disrepair until the early 20th century, when large-scale preservation and investigation work was undertaken to what is now a national monument. Interesting note, the castle is named the Castle of St. George after the patron saint of England, because King Alfonso Henriques presented the castle to his English wife, Philippa of Lancaster, as a wedding gift in 1387. Now that's a wedding gift.
There's a camera obscura over there where you can get a 360-degree view of the city. Unfortunately, they only let 20 people in, and we were number 21 and 22, so we didn't get in. But it would have been interesting to look at. It looked like a Fresnel lens looking around. You can see from this the commanding view that this castle would have had over the city and the river out there. So anybody trying to attack would have just been doomed. I don't know how you would have attacked this castle unless you bombarded it, massive bombardment. Look at how narrow that gauge is on that. Does it sound like a railway anorak? How cool is this?
We were lucky enough to find a restaurant near our Airbnb that had performance of fado music going on that night. Fado translates as fate or destiny, and I guess it's like a Portuguese version of the blues. It was at the end of our day of exploration of Lisbon that Karen had a pretty severe crash on a slick, cobbled street, and unbeknownst to us, she actually had broken her hand. As she was in real pain, we packed up and returned to Kalypso. And that's how I killed my crew, with a lime scooter.
Since the lime scooter tragedy, we've decided to have a little walk around rather than trying to sail. We decided to take a long walk down the pier side near Villa Real San Antonio, and this is what greets us at the end. Fishermen. Sorry about the wind noise, but look at that beach. Amazing. You can see Faro behind us there, the mountain poking up. It's very windy. We're at the ends of the earth, as Karen would say. I'd call it the end of the pier at Villa Real San Antonio. Hey, whatever.
We'd actually explored quite a bit on this trip to Spain and Portugal, but it was now time to leave the Algarve, to clean up, pack up, and start our plans for moving into the Med. Watch the next episode to see how that turned out. As always, if you like our videos, please press the like icon below, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can catch our next adventure as Charlie and I head out on a 20-hour sail overnight across the Gulf of Cadiz.